once again, hello and welcome to our webinar. The topic that we are covering today will be OpenClaw and Beyond, our personal AI assistants ready for enterprise. I'm your moderator, Michael Weisberg, and I'm happy to introduce you to our speaker, Dominik as well. Together, we are the founders of MCP-Builder.ai, a platform that lets you build MCP servers based on your data and needs and helps you integrate them into your systems with ease. I'm a former Android developer turned into an AI engineer for about 7 years by now, and Dominik has been a software developer for ages. In fact, he was head of backend for over 15 years before we founded the startup MCP-Builder.ai. All right, let's not wait further. Dominik is going to kick you off into our webinar.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Welcome everyone also from my side. Today we're going to take a look on AI assistants, if they are ready for enterprises, and also take a look at OpenClaw and the current hype, of course. Before we get started, I would like to make a quick poll. Question, you should see it by now. Just take a moment and answer it. And in the meantime, I'm going to take a look at the agenda. So what are we going to take a look at today? First, let's very basic start with AI assistants, what they actually are, how they work quickly, and also, of course, an example of OpenClaw. What we are not going to do today is actually install OpenClaw. I already have a setup prepared. Secondly, of course, the problem for enterprises, mostly security concerns and all other topics, and just a quick look on what is necessary to really build some great guide rails for AI assistants. And lastly, of course, also a take on solutions and potential forecast. So what it actually means and how we can make the first step towards solving that problem. Quickly, organizational-wise, you will all get the slides directly afterwards. Also a recording of this session without the Q&A, so with no personal information, of course. And you can also use the Q&A function in the webinar to always ask questions. We will all answer them afterwards in our Q&A section. So feel free to enter them at any time. All right. I saw that we already have some participants in our poll. I can also show it to you. I think, yes, you should see them by now. Around 30% have already used or are using OpenClaw. That's a pretty cool rate, I would say. And 70% have not used it yet or are quite new to this topic. So before we start, or with starting, let's have a quick first look at OpenClaw itself. Very shortly, it was created by Peter Steinberger from Vienna. I think most of us have already heard that. Now working at OpenAI. Pretty crazy story. The program itself is an open source personal AI assistant. So it basically means that it can run on your own devices and servers. So everyone can just install it on their personal devices, but of course also on another cloud server. And the main or the new thing, one of the new things about it is also that it's answering through existing channels. So it's not another dashboard or something you can also use, of course, in a dashboard. But the awesome thing is that it really goes to your WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, can be connected, and then it kind of makes the gap between the digital world and the analog world. But now, maybe some of you ask, okay, how does an AI assistant actually work? How does it actually look like? So first, let's have a quick look on the architectural side. What is always part of an AI assistant is the communication channel. Very important. This is basically how you can communicate with it. And like we said, it's using WhatsApp, Telegram. The example later, we will see Telegram. But it can also be used with MS Teams, and in the future, maybe even with calling it, with speaking with it. Secondly, we have the core. It's often referred as agent runtime. It has the core logic. It has some memory, so to keep track of what you have already chatted with the agent and whatnot, and some other technical things like a tool executor and a prompt builder. And then we will come to a very important part. In agent runtime always uses LLM models, meaning it is connected to a model. You can choose it in OpenClaw, for example, like in Mistral, OpenAI, which you know from ChatGPT, but also Claude and all the other things. And with that, the agent runtime can generate tokens, meaning code, and of course, text. And then this by itself would be like another ChatGPT connected to your communication channels. But what you actually want, or what is the special thing about it, is what we call tools or skills. That's often referred to both of them. And these are actually things that your agent runtime can execute on your running desktop PC or server. For example, command line tools, which is pretty huge. The CLE is like created 40 years ago, but now it really has a new backslash. But of course, browsers, so it can browse the internet just like a human would do on the PC. It can read and run file operations and also make cron schedulers, for example, to remind you on some new stuff. And the really, really cool thing, or maybe also part of the hype, because it became now, is about creating its own skills. So what agent runtimes can actually do is, if they are missing some skill, and if they know what they want by browsing the internet, for example, they can start to create their own additional skills. And then just run them by themselves. So this is one of the big important parts, which is really the new stuff about it, I would say, that it's evolving by itself. It knows its own code base and it can evolve by itself. All right, so this is a quick look on how, on a very high level, an AI assistant would work. So what can I do with it, theoretically at least? Some basic stuff like search for flights and book them for you. So if you ask your AI assistant, it can go to the internet, find the perfect flight and book them for you if they have payment credit card information. It can learn how to code and create your software project. The question is how well it will be if you don't overlook at it, but it works pretty well already. And theoretically, it could also go to the online casino and lose all your money if you give it the credit card. So it really is not bound to a certain tasks. To some extent, we can say like an AI assistant can do everything that you can on a PC with internet connection. It's working on a local PC. It has internet connection, and it can do everything that it can learn by using only the public internet. So that's very important. So it cannot get any private parts. It cannot log in somewhere that doesn't do, basically like a normal human would do. But theoretically, it can learn everything from the internet and then use that on the local PC if it has an internet connection. All right. Let's head quickly over. I'm going to take a quick look at OpenClaw for the people who have not used it yet. It's a very simple example because of the time. We don't have too much of it. But to quickly see how it actually works. So I have set up my Hairbot. This is my personal assistant using OpenClaw. It's run in a sandbox for me, so it's not on a local PC, and it doesn't have very much access. Just as a disclaimer. So what I already did earlier, because it always takes a bit of time, just to see a quick example, I asked Herbert, because I need to go to Linz tomorrow with my friend, and I want to see which trains are arriving around 2 p.m. So I mean, this is a very simple example, but it shows you already a bit of what's possible. So what Herbert did behind, it just went into the internet, it has browser connection, and looked up an ÖBB train for me, which looks pretty fine. Departs at 12:28 from Vienna main station. And gives that to me. This is public information now. What I could do now is I could ask it, hey, sounds great. Let's take the one at 12:28. Could you send an email to my friend to max.com? So probably you think now it should work. The problem is a bit, since it doesn't have any connection to anything, it also doesn't have an email account. So it probably will come up now with, okay, I can write you some text with it, but it's not possible for me to send something to Max because I don't have an email account. Yeah, that's exactly what it's saying here. It's drafted as a text. It actually answers twice here, good. But what I want to show with that is now, I already mentioned OpenClaw is running for me in a sandbox, so it doesn't have very much access. And that is a bit the thing. It doesn't have access, so it's not that useful right now. So in order to make it really useful, I would have to give it connection to my email, maybe to my contacts that it can find Max by itself, and all other applications, even in a private setup. And without that, it's a nice gimmick. It works a little bit, but it doesn't help that much. But giving access is kind of the security problem, which brings us back to our slides. Great. A few other examples, but I think I made the point clear already. You can ask it to make restaurant reservations, but also to contact Max or some other people, make a business plan, etc., etc. But most of the stuff, it really needs access, which is a security issue. And that brings us now to the second chapter. What is the problem for enterprises right now? And it's mainly this topic. The thing is, they're giving access to it, and this is always a security concern. For the enterprise use case, I now want to go through it with a real potential thinking case about it. So let's imagine in a big concern, we have a travel management department which kind of makes all the arrangements for expeditions, visiting, all the other stuff that people and employers travel around. So let's assume I want an AI assistant in my company that takes care of that. So I am going to an expo in Berlin, and I'm just asking, hey, please book everything for me. Yeah, make everything ready and do the organization part. So let's think about what this AI assistant would need to have skill-wise. Yeah. First of all, it needs to be able to communicate with my company employees. So if I'm working at the company, I need to be able to communicate with this assistant via email, Microsoft Teams, even telephone, maybe a phone, just speaking with it. So it needs to have an open channel there. Secondly, it needs to somehow be able to report to a controlling team and get approvals for budget, because it will really think about, okay, which kind of hotels can I book and which ones not. Then it needs to book hotels, flights, and trains. And very important, it has to pay for them on the internet. Yeah, so it needs some kind of credit card information. Then afterwards, collect the invoices from the employees, and then add all these invoices to the company controlling software. So as you see, quite a simple task in first sight. But when you think about it access-wise, yeah, it's really a massive amount of skills that the AI assistant would need to have, and of course, access that it needs to have. And now let's take the same use case and think a bit more in technical terms. So like I already said, it needs to have a messaging channel to the Microsoft Teams accounts of the companies. Yeah, it needs to have payment method. It needs to have credit card information from the company. Process knowledge, of course, yeah, which is the more straightforward, but it also needs to know how to get approvals and from whom, and budget-wise as well. Access to the controlling software, meaning maybe an SAP system or something else is running behind. It needs to access there, add new invoices and all the managing stuff that currently the team does by itself. And then, of course, it will read lots of personal data, which can be an issue. And with all the channels opening just for one thing, we already see how much things can go wrong in an enterprise setup. Yeah? For messaging channels, sounds quite easy, but we need to have some kind of verification that not suddenly someone else is kind of able to get in contact with that AI assistant and tell it to book something. That's not possible. Payment, I think, is pretty clear. It can suddenly, because it makes a mistake, send too much, wrong recipients, etc., etc. Process knowledge, we all know LLMs do hallucinations, so it can like make some stuff up and do wrong approvals. Then it can manipulate wrong data in our controlling software, of course also delete something, as well as data breaches on personal data. And about manipulating wrong data, maybe you have heard the case that someone used OpenClaw. I think it was someone from OpenAI, I'm not sure anymore. And then it actually deleted all the emails from their email account. So the hallucinating part is really important. So overall, as we see right now, at the current state, this is not suitable for enterprises at all. The risk is just way too high. And maybe some people now say, okay, I mean, the same thing could happen right now also with employees and in our teams. But then there's one thing also to understand, very important. AI is not really understanding what it's doing. In the end, it's all math, simply speaking. But it doesn't have the moral compass that our employers may have or our team might have. And it's not afraid of consequences. So right now in a team or in a department, people know, okay, we have some social norms about it, and maybe I can get sued or even fired if I do some wrong stuff. The AI, in the end, it will tell you, oh, I don't want to get sued or fired, but it doesn't really care. It's all just mathematics in the end. So that's very important to also understand when thinking about that areas. So for using AI assistants in our enterprises, I think right now we have seen that at the moment, they are not ready yet. Yeah? We have three main areas that still need to be worked on. First of all, it's how can we give it access to the company IT in a secure way, but also in a way that is monitorable. Yeah? Secondly, we have guidance and control. One of the main important things is how can we keep track of our AI assistants work in there, and how can we kind of bound it to what it should do and what it should not do. And of course, make somewhere a layer where we can take control of it. And thirdly, we have onboarding and training, which is pretty basic stuff. But like earlier I mentioned, AI assistants right now in the private sector, like OpenClaw, they only know what they find on the public internet. And lots of information in this kind of approval processes is private information owned by the enterprise. So in the end, we also need to find a way to train and onboard those AI assistants in our enterprise segment. All right, so we have seen those three areas, and now let's take a look at our chapter 3, which is basically the solutions. What is a potential solution to all that, and how can we in the future work with that? How can we improve that? And how can we find this kind of guide rails for our AI assistants in companies? A quick forecast. For that, I would like to start with a quick brainstorming, how to make AI assistants enterprise ready. So just some things that come to our mind right now is, of course, I think we all have seen before with the problems that it's very important to have some kind of human in the loop. Someone who is always working together with the AI system, because it will not work by itself, standalone, just doing some stuff. And I would even go one step further. It's not human in the loop. I would say it's human in charge. Meaning we need some kind of way to find AI assistants found in a certain department, and they know where to report to whom, and who can give approvals, which brings us to a second process. We need to somehow make sure that an AI assistant can never do something by itself. It always needs approval from a certain place, from a certain human, from a certain team member. And for that, it's not just enough to just make rule-based rules. Maybe some of you have worked with ChatGPT, and you can give system messages and you can say you are not allowed to do that. But that's not enough, actually, because it can still hallucinate. Very important is that we have an approval process in place, which is technically barrier, so that even if the AI would want to, it cannot go past that without approval. Then thirdly, we have to find some way to make secure connections, which is mainly the part about the connectivity we talked earlier. So we have a communication channel with our employees, between the employee and the AI assistant, which can be Microsoft Teams. Maybe in the future, also they can pick up the phone and call it and just speak to the AI assistant. But we need to find a way that this is secure and verified that the person who speaks with the AI assistant is someone from my team who is allowed to do that, not just someone else calling the number or finding out another thing. Then we need some kind of authorization system. I think that's something that's mostly already in place right now in similar ways, but we need to make it even more strict. What I mean with that is when you have like a controlling software like SAP, you also use personalized accounts for each of your team members. In the same way, in the future, we will need personalized account for each AI assistant with very strict permission rules. This will firstly help that it can only do the stuff that it's allowed to do in the system. But secondly, also very important for monitoring, to see afterwards, okay, what did it actually do? How did it change an entry? And maybe some other stuff in the process. Then security management, very important, and something I think that has not really been thought that much about yet in the whole AI assistant area. And what I mean with that is thinking back to credit cards. When an AI assistant should be able to buy something, it needs a credit card to enter it on the browser and then make the payment. And our personal opinion is that to really make it secure, and credit card information, but also many other information, must never reach the AI. Meaning we must find a way that an AI assistant can book something on a website and then just say, okay, and right now I need the credit card information, please add it. And not talking about a real human adding it then, because it would be like a real take time and also take time away from our employees. But find a way technically that this is done automatically without the AI ever reaching the credit card information, for example, but also some other user information on that sense. Sorry. And lastly, data privacy, of course. When we right now talk about AI assistant, we learned that all of them need LLM models. Right now, you can just add the cloud LLMs like Mistral, OpenAI, whatever. But going into enterprise, it's even more important that the company knows where the private data is coming from, especially with the privacy acts all over the world. So we'll also think about, okay, maybe we have to host our LLMs ourselves. Maybe we find some open models that we can really run on the desktop applications. And maybe some of you heard, like in OpenClaw, for example, one of the cool things is that you can also run local models if you have like a Mac Mini, for example, which is already one step towards that, actually. So we have now had some kind of ideas what we would have to do in order to make it enterprise ready. And now I would like to take a look back to our AI assistant infrastructure architecture we have had a look earlier, how it looks right now, and maybe what we would need right now in the company context in order to make this whole thing secure. So again, on the right side, we see our communication channels, WhatsApp, Telegram, etc. Then we have our agent runtime in the middle, pretty much the same. We still have our LLM models, maybe on premise, in the enterprise setup. And to the left side, we have our tools management, what before was like tools and skills. And now the most secure or the most important part, apart from like a few other things, of course, is how can we make sure that the agent runtime is only using tools and skills that it is allowed to do and not just everything. And for that, I think we will have some kind of access control in the middle very soon. I mean, some people are already starting with that. An access control where the agent runtime always has to go through before it can run something in the browser, for example, or in the bash, or make some other skills. Yeah? So it can maybe work in some kind of task way. So every time the agent needs to book a flight, it would have a task running through the access control, which first of all is, yes, I need to look up flights. Access control can then automatically verify, yeah, that is no problem, please go ahead. And then it can call the browser. But then, of course, we will also go further, and maybe then it will go like, okay, now I have found a flight. My team member is happy, he wants that to be booked, so I have to book it. And then I will make another task. And this time, maybe it's not just going through, because we need someone who says, okay, that's approved or not approved. And then we come to something that I think will be more and more available in the future enterprises, or maybe even be a bit how a modern workplace will look like. Yeah, kind of a control center instead of department, the team right now doing many stuff by itself. Maybe it go more towards, okay, now right now I will monitor, observe. Some tasks will still be a human part, but many of them will really be just controlling them and approving them or declining them and work with the agent together. So in this case, a task would come in, I have to book this flight, and then a real person, in this case, the one who is in charge for this AI assistant. I think we will always have like an AI assistant report to some person that is also responsible. And this person will then together say like, yeah, that's fine. Or maybe can you find a bit cheaper flights or whatever. Approve them, decline them, and then it goes through. Then we have one more important thing is what I mentioned earlier with secure storage. This is, okay, how can we make sure that a credit card is never really seen by the AI? So this is kind of new concepts we will still need. That the credit card number is not part of the AI or in the LLM model, but the agent can just say like a task again on a very high level. Hey, I want to book this. I need the credit card information now sent to the browser, for example. Then there would be somewhere else a secret storage, which is like a normal IT project application. The control center will actually maintain that one. And then whenever there's a task that needs kind of credit card information additionally, maybe the task is somehow added with, hey, here are secret services, and then directly sent to the browser. And then it's booked without the LLM or the AI ever seeing the credit card, which is another security level that even if the AI is hallucinating, doing some stupid stuff, it can never actually send the credit card information to somewhere else. And of course, that is a very big picture here. What is, of course, will be in there is very important. Is the whole thing surrounding that, some kind of analytics and surveillance going on top of that with a layer to where the access control can always see, okay, how does the agent react? What does it do? Really see the communication channels. Where is it communicating? How much token is it using? So I think all the quite a little bit like we have it already with our cloud systems hosting, that you also see what's happening. Yeah, very important to take control of the whole thing. So this is maybe how an AI infrastructure for the future could look like in an enterprise setup where we have many, many small AI agents. All of them have to report to some person, to some team member. This team member is in charge, takes care of what can go through directly, what do we have to approve manually. And this way, I think AI agents can really be very, very smooth and helpful for the future. So to our summary, what have we seen so far? Of course, it was all on a very high level, but I hope that it gives a bit of guideline what is still missing, what is necessary, and what do we have to improve in the future. So some must-haves and must-not-haves for AI assistants in order to work in an enterprise. I think what's the most important thing is AI enterprise needs AI assistants to have some really good, great guidance, but also like kind of firewall-like behavior where it cannot go through. And that in a technical sense and not in a rule-based sense. So it's never enough to just say to the AI, please, you're not allowed to do that. It really must be a technical barrier where it's not even possible to do that if it would want it. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a really nice testing also in the future that, for example, for developers could take a look and really program an AI that is programmed to behave very badly. And still, if you put it in there, it should not be able to do anything it shouldn't do, because the surrounding guidelines must be that safe that even if the AI is really programmed to do some bad stuff, it cannot do that. And then we have succeeded. So other stuff like approval process, very strict, role and user-based access. Even more important, it should be like right now, if you have a new employer, you give him like personal users to your Gmail, to your whatever. Same process for AI assistants. And of course, it needs onboarding and training. Yeah. Just like right now, your team members learn which kind of processes you have in place, which kind of important approval processes you have. And what we must not have, I think it's pretty much the opposite of it, never have direct access to critical components. So we must not rely on the LLM to behave correctly. So it shouldn't have access directly. And also access to secure data, to personal data it shouldn't see, or to information like credit card information. So overall, I think these are the most important parts, together with that control mechanism, and to see the AI assistant as part of a helper for my coworker who is in charge. I think that's the very important thing on how to get enterprises going in the future with AI assistants.